Hey, everybody, we're back with CBS News Prime Time's John Dickerson. Mike Pence is out, and Nikki Haley seems to be having a moment right now. Certainly in Iowa, she's having a bit of a surge. Some people say that she's gathering steam. But at 16%, sort of matching DeSantis there, both of them are 30 points behind Donald Trump. Is it steam or are people just blowing smoke?
Well, and you're talking to somebody who, for a long time as a pure political reporter, had an interest, though he fought against it, in saying there's a race going on. So I just want to put the cards on the table for that, in that sense.
You have a vested interest in there being a race.
In there being a race, because then we get something to cover. So, so you can use that to discount whatever I say, which is that what you saw inside that Des Moines Register poll is that Trump was not only ahead by a lot, but his supporters were locked in. They're not going anywhere. In other words, other voters may slosh around, but his are locked in, which means that number, it's a very long shot for Nikki Haley. But she's at 22% in a recent CNN poll in South Carolina. Tim Scott's at 6%, so his candidacy. And there is a thirst for a Trump alternative if there could be just one. But it is still the case that he is close to 50% in the key states, and in national polls he's at 50%. Above 50%, which means all other candidates combined still couldn't beat him. So he's in a very commanding position in his party, and he's not penalized, and no one will attack him for what he did, which was to threaten the Constitution by declaring the last election was stolen.
It does seem that none of the other candidates are actually serious candidates, because other than Chris Christie, who seems to have Johnny-come-lately morality about this, is that none of them are attacking him for the things that are easy cudgels at the ready. So let's say January 6th. Let's say 91 indictments. Let's say a judge saying, no, you did rape E. Jean Carroll, which happened in a courtroom here in New York. No one is picking up those weapons against him. That seems like those are kind of just sort of, play candidacies, that you're not actually taking this seriously.
Their biggest problem is that that any cudgel they would pick up is very difficult in a party that penalizes you for attacking Donald Trump. But I would go one further to what you say. We've never had a presidential candidate about whom we know so much. Usually you have to guess how they will act in office. And the key thing you're asking yourself is, will they, in a pinch, act in the service of the Constitution and the country, or in their own self-interest? And you have to guess. You have to interview their friends. You have to look at their time as governor or whatever to guess at what they will do in a moment in a pinch. There is on-the-record testimony from people under oath repeatedly about what President Trump did in office. We have the cleanest, best record of what he would do in a pinch when it comes between his personal interest and the country. And again, the people closest to him under oath say he failed that test. On January 6th, the leader of the House Republicans, the leader of the Senate Republicans, and the vice president all said he failed the constitutional test. We've never had a candidate who has been so thoroughly vetted by his own actions in the job he wants. And despite all of those claims, he would like to be rewarded with a second presidency. And that's extraordinary. And I would say one other thing. If he was indicted for trying to protect the Constitution, would there be enough evidence to convict him? There is no story of him in the 2 months before January 6th saying, wait a minute, we should be careful about the claims we make, because to claim an election is stolen is to rip at the heart of our democracy. So let's pause a minute. There's not a single piece of testimony to that effect.
So given everything that you've said about what we know, I'll ask you a question I asked Anderson Cooper a few weeks ago. And I said to him, he started off in 2015 as something of a clownish figure, but now he starts as a tragedy. How do you cover a candidate with something a public might perceive as objectivity, who starts as a national tragedy?
This is something we wrestle with a lot. I think the first thing you do is don't always see the world through the prism of politics, whether it's Donald Trump or not. There are a lot of serious issues in this country right now. So the first thing is, what do we cover that's important to the country before you ever get to Donald Trump? Then when you get to Donald Trump, you have to keep asking why. Why do people support him? Why do they feel the way they do? What is it about America that they see in Donald Trump, which is more about his supporters than him? Then with Donald Trump, you have to do a couple of things. Just because he does something doesn't mean it's news. He has to do something newsworthy. If he says something because he tells untruths so frequently, Sandwich the untruth with two truths. So say the true thing, then report what he said if it's newsworthy, and then sandwich it with the true thing again. That way, it keeps and contains the untruth that he said. And then also, don't take the bait. We know now, as you and I have discussed a lot, that there are a lot of things he does purposefully to inflame the news coverage so that he'll get covered for it.
The metaphor that we've used is only swing at actual pitches he's throwing. He throws lots of things that actually aren't pitches. They're just hunks of mud, hoping that you'll swing at it. So you won't actually see where the actual ball is.
Or he'll throw the ball at your head. And so then you'll cover the madness. Mm-hmm. The madness isn't where, and this is a problem because there's still all those big issues I talked about earlier out there that need to be reported on and talked about and all that. And the more the chaos pseudo events are covered, the more this isn't getting covered. And that keeps negative energy in the system. The reason that the electorate gets unhappy is for years and years, they've been told by their politicians, we're going to take care of those problems that you're worried about. David Leonard has a book out this week. In 1940, 92% of parents could feel like their kids were going to earn more than they could. Now that's down to 50%. In that kind of country, your politicians should strive to make that better. And so they put all this energy and invested all this hope in politicians, and they've been let down. And so if you keep covering the spectacle, that letdown's going to keep happening. So don't let the letdown happen.
We have to take another break here, but stick around. We're right back with more Mr. John Dickerson, everybody.